Welcome back to Lucid Nightcap. We are officially back. Remember last week, we thought we wasn't gonna be back. We were holding on to dear life. Will we survive? Will we survive? We made it. All is well. So we have a great and exciting show today for you. Lucas Callejas have three, Lucas Callejas. Make sure you do that. He has three main hot topic news headlines to talk about. And Marissa Hukin talking a little about women voting for Trump, or women in the wake of the election and their support for Trump. And on the back end, I'm going to share my commentary on some videos that kind of was curated by myself that I thought would be interesting to talk about and give my commentary on. So with further ado, let's enjoy the show.
American patriots are in rebellion again. We're covering stolen election, COVID vindications, and Victoria's Secret super witches. Let's start with this article from Slay News. Study of 1.7 million children. Heart damage only found in COVID-vaxxed kids. Okay, so we have a study that spans the era of the pandemic, two buckets of people, two buckets of kids, vaccinated, unvaccinated. The unvaccinated kids had no heart damage. The vaccinated kids had a bunch of heart damage. The other big takeaway with this article is that both buckets, no kids died from COVID upon their follow-up check-ins and investigations. So what does this tell us? Not only do we not protect them from dying, because no unvaccinated kids died and no vaccinated kids died, not only do we not protect them from getting infected, but we actively damaged kids' hearts unnecessarily. Okay, so we're talking about rebellion, American rebellion. Put a pin in that. Look at this next headline. Epic Times, after Trump win, RFK Jr. says entire departments at the FDA have to go. Here's the deal. We are governed largely at this point by an executive branch federal bureaucracy that is totally godless. You can call it the deep state, you can call it the blob, whatever you want to call it. Americans maybe not talking about COVID actively, but they see this, they hate it, and they are responding appropriately. Okay, study number 2. I know you've seen this going around. It's a chart that shows a big jump in liberal votes in 2020. Now it's come back down to normal in 2024. And people are using this as proof of just straight up voter fraud, fake ballots, et cetera. You know, people voting beyond the grave and that kind of stuff. I have a different take on it. For someone who maybe is too highbrow to believe that the election was just straight up stolen. Okay, so if you've seen the evidence of ballot harvesting and ballot boxes being stuffed and water mains breaking at 3 a.m. and the counts changing dramatically somehow in the middle of the night and laws being changed last minute, if you've seen all that and you're still not convinced, I'm gonna point out to you this simple fact, okay? This is mob rule. Mob rule was a big no-no to our founding fathers. Listen to this. James Madison talking about mob rule, or faction as he called it. A number of citizens, whether amounting to a minority or a majority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. Now, we can't argue about who's taking rights away from who with a leftist because they have redefined the word. They don't know what rights means anymore. We're going to focus on the word impulse. Okay, impulsiveness is directly correlated with mob rule, and mob rule is evil. All right. Now, I think if you're watching this, you kind of already know liberals are more prone to emotional manipulation. But this proves that when the media in lockstep comes out lying about Russian collusion and threat to democracy and concealing the Hunter Biden laptop story and saying it's disinformation, when they all do that together, it can really rile up people emotionally. And at best, you have to admit it drives them to the ballot boxes for false reasons and changes the nature of our government. And that's evil. And that's, I have to say it, it's, They call Republicans and conservatives a threat to democracy. We're not a democracy. Forget that for a second. This is a threat, a direct threat to our form of government, people being ruled by emotion. I think this election was a response to that, and that's another part of our lovely rebellion. Story number 3, Gisele Bundchen, Tom Brady's ex-wife. She's in the news right now. We're not going to talk about the gossip with her leaving her husband and how she met the current boyfriend and that kind of stuff. We're going to hear about her views on religion, on money and success, and we're not going to speculate anything. We're going to hear directly from her husband of over a decade.
You know, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years, and she always makes a little altar for me at the game. And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids. And I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones. And she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes. And I say all these mantras. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks, and she said, you better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win. And I did all those things, and by God, it worked. It was pretty good.
Okay, so anyone watching this, even if you're not an overt Christian, you're creeped out by this, right? Because the Bible tells us that Babylon is both a system of false worship, and it's an evil, corrupted system of politics and finances, economics. And the point is this: we know that these two things are often intertwined. So when we hear someone talk about overtly practicing witchcraft, the average American, the regular blue-collar, salt and earth of the country, just kind of wants to reject that. And when we see and hear the people who govern over us and the elites overtly practicing witchcraft, we just know it's weird and we know it's wrong, even if you're not a theologian. So, Christians and conservatives, we won a big victory this week. I think we pointed the country back towards righteousness and virtue. And I think the lesson here is if we stay in prayer, if we stay in repentance, we can see the nation transformed into goodness and beauty. We will see you next week, same time, same place, here on Nightcap.
Okay, first things first, post-election. Got to check in with the ladies. How are the ladies in America doing? Have any of your rights been stripped away? Are there any rights on the docket to be taken away? The answer is no. Obviously, the Harris campaign went wild, especially at the end, with fear-mongering and convincing women and their husbands and their boyfriends alike that women's rights were on the ballot. I don't know, as far as I know as a woman in America in 2024, I would argue that we actually have even more advantages than men here. Let's say I'm applying for a job and they're comparing me versus a man. We have the same accomplishments, the same accolades. Who do you think they're choosing? They're going to choose me as a woman because of DEI initiatives and all of the things. So please give me a break with that. But again, we know the one right that they are referring to, the one freedom they're referring to, of course, is their so-called right to abortion, which as far as I'm concerned personally, and as far as many other Americans are concerned, that really should never be a right. It is not a human right. But again, the Harris campaign threatened everyone with Trump's federal abortion ban, had to look out for that. But again, that was never even going to happen. That, of course, has already been taken care of with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision, which left that up to the states. The abortion issue is an issue of the states, and that's how it will stay. And again, Harris couldn't even do anything about that. So for the ladies who voted for Harris for that reason alone was really quite silly, and there needed to be more research done for sure. But honestly, my biggest takeaway, sadly, from this election, even though it was wonderful, wonderful victory here, my biggest takeaway is really the fact that the lies are so pervasive when it comes to abortion, which was so sad that one side had to resort to lies, that's when you know you're on the wrong side, to push their agenda and to get those votes and push these stories that got out there that they're never going to talk about again, probably, until it's politically convenient. But really, this is a cultural issue, a spiritual issue when it comes down to it. So for Christians, for pro-life Christians, as we all should be, there's so much more to be done in terms of just changing women, especially their minds and hearts when it comes to this, and just combating those lies. And what was so sad too, towards the end of the campaign was, of course, the women and men alike who were voting for their daughters, they said, for Harris. And again, this was the right to abortion. So So sadly, when they're talking about this, they're talking about giving their daughter the right to abort their granddaughter and their great-granddaughter, and that is just despicable. And I have to ask, is that really progress? Have we gotten this far in society that now it's come down to something that is so barbaric and that's become a priority for voters? Oof. And of course, in response to the election now, we are seeing female rage, which is highly encouraged in feminism, rearing its ugly head because of these lies. And again, I get it because these lies are everywhere. But look into them because, ladies, you have been lied to, especially around miscarriage care, ectopic pregnancies, all of those things. And now a word to the Christians, okay? I want you to know we can rejoice. We have the right to rejoice after this election, after this victory for righteousness or for more righteous policies. People are really misusing the word of God at this point. There are Christians who are just saying like, oh, simmer down, like don't be too excited about this because there are people that disagreed with you. Be nice. No. We rejoice when the righteous are in authority. That is in Proverbs and that is clear. They're trying to say, rejoice with those who rejoice, but mourn with those who mourn. There is nothing to mourn about here. It could not have been more clear, everyone. So please stick to that. Again, there was one campaign that wanted no restrictions on abortion. One campaign who was down for the mutilation of children's perfectly good body parts, pushing gender confusion, and taking away parental rights in the process. There was one campaign who couldn't define a woman, still can't, and a party that thinks that genders are interchangeable. All of these things are completely anti-God, and there is just no way to reconcile that as a Christian. It is so clear. This is not to say that Trump is Jesus. This is not to say Republicans are angels or salvific. That is obvious, but the choice here could not have been more clear. So now, again, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when a wicked man rules, the people groan. We can rejoice right now. This signaled a monumental shift in our country toward the right direction, and I believe wholeheartedly that America is even more ripe now for a spiritual revival. And we now, because of this, as Christians, will have more of an opportunity to spread the gospel, to share the good news, and point people towards Jesus. So yes, we rejoice when righteousness wins, and do not let anyone tell you otherwise.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you want to catch more episodes like this, go over to relucid.com where you can subscribe for $5 a month and you can get access to more content like this, as well as our exclusive documentaries. That's all we have for you this week. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.